Alright, I haven't checked my channel in a while. Let's take a look and see what's happening with Nagali Park. Oh, 2017. Huh. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's pretty funny there too. Oh, the snark. Will this affect how often Brocoaster videos are published? No, the answer to that is no. We're terrible with that as well. Oh, Ruby. Right here, bitch. Welcome to episode 2 of Nagali Park. In the first episode, we created this awesome dragon coaster. And it's been a while, hasn't it, guys? It's I will admit it has been a while. So I wanted to recreate one of the rides that I think is pretty unique to NigloLand, which is the park that I'm basing this off of in France. It's called the Grand Prix de NigloLand, and it is based off of their... I don't even know what the theme of this park is, but it's just supposed to be the Grand Prix, like the European race track. You know, it's fairly generic, but it is like really well landscaped, and it is grown in really nicely. You can kind of see through here. This is the street view of NigloLand, and this is what I use a lot to actually base my designs off of and my choices. And you can see just how kind of lush and wooded this park is. And then if we jump over to this, you know, I can only work off of the POVs that I can find on YouTube. Some of the trip reports have been pretty good, but just for this particular ride, I wanted to kind of get an idea of what I'm doing here. The ride is really tight. It's kind of like an Utopia type ride, and it's very cool because it ends up coming right by the station. It comes by the station 2 times, and so you end up like racing the other person who is on the other track in this little stretch here. And I think that's pretty dang cool. How I'm going to do that, I do not know, but let's get started. So there are a few things that I noticed about this ride that I want to bring in. First off is it is incredibly tight to the ground. The ground is well landscaped around it. And then there's also there's an interaction with the train, which is really kind of cool and unique. As you're coming around the bend here, you can see that the train tracks are right next to the ride track. So that is something that I'm going to try and do with my circuit train as well. And you can just see that it's completely wooded, and the ground covers are pretty full. This is a look that's really hard to achieve in this game, so we'll give it a shot. So I've had to rebuild this a number of times because it's really hard to kind of see what this thing does. If I go back to my maps here, let's see if I can get a good picture of it. Yeah, it's it's almost impossible to see, but I can kind of tell that it is this giant kind of triangle. It's this round triangle, and that's what this ride is. And so I'm gonna try and finesse those curves a little bit more. But I got this racing section kind of in. It had to finagle it a little bit. You can see it's a little tight. And then I had to definitely limit the track collision. But it's nice that we've got these new cars from... which set was this? This was not Ghostbusters, but Classic Rides, I think. But yeah, they're pretty nice, and they fit on this kind of guide rail track. Of course, they don't bump into it back and forth, but what are you gonna do? I did get this interaction done here, though, which is kind of nice. And you can see the train is coming by right now, and it clears it pretty nicely. I can have a bridge right there. And then all this elevated track is going to be surrounded by land. It's fairly easy to do, but it is fairly time consuming as well. And you just kind of work it up to the base here until that disappears, all the way up until it starts bleeding through, and then just flatten it. And then somehow finesse that angle so that it looks kind of natural, and then just have to work this angle down a little bit. And then I have to do that for everything. So, and so I need to connect this guy all the way over here. And then this pretty much races all the way up to here. And from what I can tell, if I go back here, and it's really freaking hard to see, but it goes this way and up, and I think it swivels back around, and it comes up this way, and then that's where it breaks off and goes next to the train track, and then comes back up, and then it races, and then it just turns around and comes back into the station. So that's what we're going to do next. And now I've been able to get some peeps on it. We've got it moving. I was able to complete it too. It was a fairly easy one to complete. And if you look, overhead, these rides tend to be a little bit oversized, and it's a frustration that I just can't do anything about. The way that the game is scaled, it's too large. If you look at that. Look at that seat. I don't know if you've ever ridden one of these things, but they do not have this much room. On the other side here, I've been able to kind of work on the train a little bit. You can see that it's really, really tight to the track here. And then I also worked on these bridges, which I noticed. As I look back in the POV, I can see that I've got these really simple kind of concrete bridges. Doing the best I can with the erosion control and everything. They come back a little bit. They're not exactly the same, but they get the job done. And if you want to know how they're made, they are windows as walls. Castle window leaded. So if I turn that around, you can see what I'm working with. A little bit further in the process, I have the beginnings of a station built. It's a fairly simple station. It's not grand. I also have the little kidney-shaped pond that you can kind of see if I go back to all my views. Yeah, there's a pond right in there, and you can see it on ride as well. If I go back through here, yep, big old pond right there. And then the other big thing I noticed is that if you see if I can find a better angle of it, but there are some really thick ground covers, and you come around on the train side is basically just it looks like it's a juniper or some other creeping ground cover, but it is completely kind of green and covered and lush. I was kind of wondered how to do that, and so I've messed around with a few things, and I think I've actually come up with a solution. It's a bunch of roses that are all painted this kind of dark green color. And so when you drive by, you get the feeling that the whole thing is pretty well wooded in. I'll add some trees a little bit later, but I wanted to get that out there first. I also tend to use these as a way to kind of soften concrete edges. It would be awesome if we had the ability to change their color, because they're a little bit on the green side, but they still work. And when you hit it in that certain light, it just looks really nice. There's the train going by. These are the little bushes that I saw separating the train from the car ride, and definitely would not fly in an American park, but that's why this one's a little bit different. You can just see kind of the scale. The scale that's developing. As you drive through, it's very, very intentionally small. And I'm really enjoying it. Here we are again. I've been able to cover up some of the station here, which is really nice because the station kind of ruins the look of some of these realistic builds. Also, I don't know if you noticed this in the POV. Yeah, there is this exit path. And even though our particular, our system's not going to do that, they're not going to use that. I just wanted to add that as a little bit of an option. And again, scale is a bit of a problem. It always is in Planet Coaster. But, it kind of sells the idea that you have to walk up and then over and down to get out. There is also, I have this little animatronic guy. I really wish they didn't have sticks up their bumholes. Not a great artistic choice from Frontier. It's just why, why? why that? Notice I've got this a little bit better. I've got this area kind of worked out. There is, when I look at, again, my reference images and video, heading through here, it's nicely wooded. There's a lot of ground covers, big trees, and then, there's just this open kind of lawn area that's a little bermed up. I like this kind of simplicity, and that's what I wanted to kind of show here. It's just kind of berms up, and then I think on this side I'll do some flowers or something like that, some tulips, because I think that was actually in the ride too. But you can kind of see that it's starting to come together. You got the little racing section here of the actual circuit. And then this pond, I've tried to make it a little bit more concrete by these, this is a TMTK rock from M. Stankow. And I really enjoy it for this purpose because you can change it any color you want. If I could click on it. There we go. And it's super flat, and it has a really good texture, and it looks exactly like formed concrete. And I like it for this really kind of artificial structure. I think it works really nicely. It's something that I could not get with the other boulders. Over here, I've got it wooded in a little bit more. I've got some ivy growing up there, and just in general, some ground cover that's kind of hiding this rough drop in height. I don't know if that's super accurate to what's going on in the actual ride, but some concessions have to be made, and that happens to be one. If in doubt, you just kind of cover it with foliage and you're good to go. Same with this one. It's pretty well wooded in, very green. I'm also noticing a bit of a performance hit by putting so many of these rose bushes in here. I am kind of curious if Frontier did not optimize this particular piece, or if I'm using it incorrectly. On this side, I've kind of experimented a little bit with some ground cover flowers. When you look at it up close, it kind of falls apart. But if you look at it from a little bit of a distance, it can look like cyclamen or, other kind of ground covers. As a ground cover, it kind of provides that look. And that's going to be in a more shaded area when I start installing the trees. I just wanted to get the ground covers in first so that I can actually work around the trees without deleting them every 5 seconds. Oh, we got a bit of a big jump here. I ended up forgetting to set my hour timer, and now we are much further along than I actually remember. So I'll try and remember what I was doing previously. I think none of the trees were here. But yeah, this little flower bed is new. In general, I just kind of spruced up and tried to increase some of the plantings here, using a lot of the in-game trees and stuff like that. But I also noticed that this particular ride, if I look in here, yeah, you can see that is a lot more filled out. The big trees really help to provide some shadows, which plays nicely on the track and also on all these bushes. I really like the way this came out. Performance hit be damned. And then I also noticed that there's a whole bunch of hedging around this kind of corner here. And so I tried to emulate that over here. Of course, I could have just used simple kind of topiaries, and my computer probably would have liked me for it a lot better. But it just doesn't quite have the same look. Even when you stack them on top of each other, they get a little gridded. And and not quite as leafy and green. So again, the climbing rose came in handy. And in this time, I just did it with a bit lighter greens for that kind of mid-tone. This piece is incredibly useful, and I'm finding a ton of different uses for it. So not only is it hedging, but it's ground cover. And I've also been experimenting with some other things. If I pop over here. Trees. It's a jacaranda, and that's like a red leaf tree. These kind of trees right here, these Swiss stone pines. Yeah, this is a super useful piece. It can use it for literally almost everything. As this area begins to fill in, and as I add more trees, I can start adding in some of these like kind of larger leafed things that like the shade, because that's the understory. And so if they're not getting a whole lot of light, I can have things that that won't necessarily like it to be in full sun. I think I'll kind of expand on this idea and make it a little bit more grown in and jungly, because again, I'm going off of this. I don't know when this was taken in Google, but this is basically my reference, is what's going on in here. And it looks fairly grown in and overgrown. If I just kind of take a look at this one right next door, it's full of ivy, some palms and stuff like that. And so that's what I'm going to try and replicate. Also got some more details done on the station here, added some lights, added a sign. Fairly simple, but it gets the job done. Some roofing, some little window boxes, because again, in my source pick here, there's little window boxes, or little flower boxes. And on the back side, I've been working on a little bit of lighting. Of course, this being a more budget-driven park, the lighting is... Well, you can see the lighting's actually flashing in some instances. And it is very cold. It's that fluorescent green. It gets the job done, and it does nothing else. So on the front side, it's a little warmer. It's looking a little bit nicer. But on the back side, it is definitely that green fluorescent. No other lighting in the ride, too. So it's a dark ride at night. But it looks kind of cool. Damn it, I really need to set the freaking timer. So here we are. I lost a few steps along the way, but here we are. Definitely more filled in. I've been experimenting a lot with these kind of custom foliage pieces. Again, that's all one single rose piece that is just copied and multiplied, and the colors changed a little bit here and there. Added some cypress because it's very common in these kinds of parks to see. And it has just gotten way filled in here. I've got that red tree that I was talking about a little bit earlier back there. And then, I don't think I ever showed this. This is my little tulip garden area. And so when you come around this final bend, you've got this cool little viewing path here. And if you notice, there is not a whole lot of barriers keeping people back. And that is a very intentional choice. Again, if I work over here, also notice the size of the path. It's small. This path is so small for this park, and that's kind of what I like about the challenge here. So I have done that myself. You'll notice that these are not the size of a normal path. And the way I did that, I'll show you over here. There is an excellent tutorial on this, but I'll just give you a real fast kind of... I'll do a 7-foot one here. So you start with a Q piece, then you autofill with a path piece, and then you take a Q piece, and you create another connection. Oops. Do that properly. Then autofill with a path piece, and then repeat. And then if you want to turn it, you can start doing that here. And repeat. And if they start connecting into each other, just kind of tell them to knock it off. And then when you delete it all away, you have these really cool, small 7-foot paths. And they do function. You can see that I do have peeps that are actually walking on them. This is a 10-foot path, but the same kind of method applies. And then you can have smaller paths in your park. If you are willing to do it, it's a little frustrating to have to do all those pieces all at once. But the point that I was trying to make before I got off on that tangent is you head over here to where the car ride actually emerges again. And you'll notice there's a little bit of box there, a little boxwood, but not a whole lot in the way of barriers. And that is fairly common in this park. The barriers are visual. They're not necessarily, they're more like implied barriers. They're not don't die fencing. There's no such thing as don't die fencing in this park, which I admire, and I'm actually kind of replicating here because it's a fairly old ride, and unless there was actually an incident, there would be no reason to have additional barriers. Over here is a little section that I'm really proud of. Again, if I go back to my, you'll notice a theme here. I have to go back to my reference images quite a bit. It's this little opening here that I wanted to recreate, and I actually ended up making it a little jankier than the actual park, because I've got these kind of overgrown hedges with a little bit of like death in the middle there, where they just haven't grown in slightly. But again, using that same kind of method, layering those rose bushes on, and in this case, I've got a little bit of ivy in there too. I think the best way to show all this off is actually going to be to ride it. So let's hop in. Here we go. Hello, sir. How you doing? Sorry you got to stick up your butt, but them's the brakes, dude. And we're off. And so it's a nice little wooded ride here. Got your ground covers, and you can see the other car coming up. And then this is going to be a functioning path that gets peeps over there. Got this awesome bridge. Again, there are barely any railings or anything like that, so this park really expects you to not be an idiot. You can see the train. Oh, the train's actually passing by. That's very cool. There it goes. The interaction is just awesome in this area. You can look down, you can look at the people. And then you can start to see your car that you're going to be racing here pretty soon. And then you're down the straight. Look over to the side. You can see this wonderful pond that you've got there. Some flowers flowing by. Some bushes. Those are supposed to be hydrangeas. I know they're lacking. And then in this part of the park, you can sort of see Dragon over there. You can sort of see the line for it. It's a little bit open. And then it breaks off, and we go down into this kind of section, and that's where the trainer interaction was. But again, you should start to see other cars coming over the bend. And then you come around, and you can see the other car that you're about to race. Oh, he's gaining on you. Oh, there's no people in that car. All right, we've got a good race going on. And you head by the station again. And there goes the other car. So you travel that same line, and then it breaks off again. And this pretty much marks the end of the ride, and so you're kind of at the end here. Got some bushes. And then some tulips, and you can see the other people kind of walking along the path there. There's some nice interaction. Next to the janky hedge. And back into the station. And that is the Nagali circuit. It's about as close as I can get to the real thing. I know it's a little bit bigger if you look at kind of overhead here. I'm trying not to show anything off that you can't see. I have also built up some paths over here too, but yeah, it's a little bit big. Per Planco, you can see that the station platform just uses so much material. And then to actually have the tracks right next to each other, well, the tracks are large too. There's certain things that are out of my control, but I'm really happy with the way it came out. I think this is the prettiest ride that I've created, and it is literally just a bunch of freaking plants. That's all it is. It's some plants and it's just some clever terrain work. But it is one of my favorite things, and I think it just sets the tone for this park really nicely. Because as you come out onto the main kind of midway here, it's the very first thing you see. You can see it has a pretty good line, and then you'll be off to other adventures back that way. I have had a great time putting this ride together. I really hope you have enjoyed watching it. If you liked what you saw, you know what to do. And hopefully in the next episode we can start working on another area, maybe go back to this kind of Asian area and kind of fill it out a little bit more. Because really, I mean, where we left it, I had only the dragon ride. And I know that Frontier released, oh, let's see, what ride was that? It was the giant pagoda that nobody could possibly ever use in their park except for somebody like me. Because it fits it fits the theme perfectly. So we'll definitely add that probably in the next episode, and maybe work on that pan Asian, Chinese, Japanese area, and kind of work in some other ideas that I have for this park. We're probably going to stray a little bit away from directly copying NigloLand and try and do something a little bit more Nagali. And so I hope you join us for episode 3 in likely 2021 with the way that we're going. I will try and keep these videos a little bit more regular through this summer season. I know I thought that I was going to be working on the TMTK. I thought I was going to be adding plants and stuff like that, but that didn't really pan out. The restrictions and the frustration of the TMTK just made it kind of unbearable. So instead, I've used in-game assets to create new plants and new shapes and stuff like that. And I will provide this in a workshop link here in the near future, along with another thing that I'm working on to help decorate your parks. I hope you guys have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. See you later, guys.